Hi, welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Angela Yeager.
And I'm Brian Michael. Ooh, today we got a really special show for you today, as it is always every week. We're going to be reviewing Harry Dean Stanton's Lucky. We're going to be talking about a film festival that Angela just recently went to. And then we're going to be talking about a big Oscar winner as well. Ooh, but what one? But we're going to start with Marshall, which is the clip you saw at the top of the show. This chronicles a portion of the life of Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall during one of his earlier court cases. And, you know, when you go into a biopic, it's like, okay, so is this Oscar bait? Is it going to be very serious? Is there going to be a big round of applause here at some point in time, or a slow clap? Is it going to be this feel-good film? Is it going to concentrate mostly on the case here? Is it going to get really gritty? What's going on? And first, I will say that Chadwick Boseman, who plays Marshall, is absolutely fantastic. Actually, I really enjoyed a lot of the cast. Actually, Josh Gad was fantastic as well. He kind of plays his partner in this. It's kind of a comic relief in a way. But I was surprised how funny this movie was. I mean, it's a very serious matter. Marshall is portrayed as a very serious man who just comes in, knows exactly what to say, and just kind of bosses everybody around and lets everybody know what to do. But there are so many nice light moments.
Took you by surprise for the subject matter?
I was really surprised by that, because it was like, oh, I was expecting this hard Oscar push, and it was a very enjoyable film. Now, this is the weird part. It's like, well, gosh, it didn't really have any big emotional moments for me where I was really stunned. I did learn a lot about the character. I did learn about everyone that was up on screen. I did enjoy this film. I would very much so recommend this film. But yeah, don't let it fool you to think that it's going to be this big, heavy thing. It actually was very enjoyable. We laughed a lot for the film.
Really good.
And it's very well made. Very well made.
Yeah, it's a very entertaining film. And this is actually surprising. It's 20 plus years before Thurgood Marshall becomes a Supreme Court justice. So it's like early in his law career. He's the first attorney for the NAACP. And so he's sort of charged by them to go out across the country and find crimes where it's a person of color who is being prosecuted specifically just because of their race. They're innocent, but for whatever reason, they are being prosecuted because of their race. So this case that is featured in this movie is a very controversial case in Connecticut. It's an all-white jury, and it's, one of the, especially for this is the early 40s, worst kind of cases you can imagine. It's a black man who's on trial for raping a white woman. And so the whole town is stirred up. And so Chadwick Boseman does a great job of showing the swagger and the confidence of Thurgood Marshall. He is not a humble man by any means. There's some joke at one point, they say he says something and someone says something back to him. I think it's supposed to be Langston Hughes, who went to college with him, says, oh, well, you've got enough confidence for all of us, so don't worry, And so, he is a very confident, cocky character, but I love that about them. And that kind of leads some of the comedic moments, because he's paired with Josh Gad as Sam Friedman, who is a local lawyer in Connecticut, who's kind of just put on the case because he's local, because he's barred in the state of Connecticut, and they need a local person to be on the case with them. And so there's a lot of comedic relief with the two of them, because Josh Gad's character has no trial experience. He's never tried. He's an insurance lawyer, and he's never tried a criminal case before. And here he's thrust into this huge civil rights case that's, got all this attention in media.
Doesn't like the attention. Doesn't want the attention.
Very opposite of Chadwick Boseman's Thurgood Marshall, who wants the attention, loves to pose for the cameras, likes to make big statements, and so they're kind of paired as these opposites. But it's a nice pairing, I think.
I really enjoyed their chemistry together, because they spent a lot of the time of the film together, and I like how they're actually able to play off one another. Had great chemistry and great timing, I should say. They have great timing together, and I really like that. But so now, how did you feel? I mean, is this a 4-star film for you?
No, I would say 3.5 stars.
That's where I'm going there
it's
too.
3.5 stars. It's a little lighter than I expected. I don't think that's a bad thing. No. I think it's okay that it doesn't have a lot of gravitas, because we're used to that from some of the most recent civil rights movies, from a Selma or something like that has a lot more weight to it, and those are great as well. But this was kind of a nice relief from that in a way to bring in a subject matter that's not comical at all, and to bring in some nice, entertaining, lighter touches.
Yeah.
I think what was kind of odd, and not necessarily a bad thing, it's just maybe the title alone, but also the advertising for the movie makes you think that this is a biopic about Thurgood Marshall, and it's really not. You don't really learn actually much about him at all. A little bit, but from a very specific time. And I know it's a slice of his life in this very period, but he and Josh Gad's Sam Friedman character are almost in the movie about the same amount. So it's really a movie about this case in this very specific moment in time when I think he went from a lawyer on the brink to kind of a big national.
But you want to call the movie People versus, unless Larry Flint.
Yeah, no, that's true. I can see that, but you almost think it's going to be this, because he goes on. This is early in his career, so he goes on. I mean, it says then he goes on 32 civil rights cases. Of course, goes on much later, 20 plus years later, become a Supreme Court justice. So the first African American Supreme Court justice.
What I really enjoyed about this film, because I recently had watched Chinatown, and of course, not all our films can necessarily compare to that one, but I really enjoyed about Chinatown is that as Geddes is finding clues and stuff. He doesn't just, there's not a narration or him going, hey, this is da 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 da. And they did that in the movie really well. When he's approached at the bar and a woman says, a woman's going to be a woman or a man's going to be a man. And he immediately gets a light bulb look, just an idea, and then he uses that it helps him break the case. And I really enjoyed that, where it wasn't he just went over and said, hey, da 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 da, and explained everything, and I really liked that. Or he does have the moment where he goes and explains it to somebody, but it wasn't. They didn't feed the audience. They treated us with respect, and they didn't talk down to us. There's a couple of different ones that way. When they were picking, the really wonderful scene in it is when they're picking the jury, and there's a young lady up on the court, up on the stand, and Josh Gad's character does not want to pick her.
They disagree
over it. But he's like, you don't understand. You're not watching her body language. Because he doesn't have the experience.
They show how smart he was.
And how to pick a jury. And this is what you're going to do. And I love that. And then there's a nice little payoff towards the end of the movie with that as well.
Right.
So,
and Josh Gad's character, Sam Friedman, thought that, she's a Southern white woman and she already knows the victim. So she, the alleged victim. So, he's like, she can't be on the juror. So he's shocked when Thurgood Marshall says, no, I want her on there. Yeah. Because he's reading other things about her. So I like that. I also like the scenes when they're investigating the crime themselves and they go to the scene of the crime.
That's
and
really good.
Thurgood Marshall picks up some stones and puts them in
doesn't tell us what it's for.
No, we don't learn till later. There's a payoff later. So I have to say, I do like a good courtroom drama stuff. You don't like legal dramas or movies, because a lot of this is the actual legal proceedings. A good chunk of the movie is the courtroom trial. I actually enjoy a good courtroom trial movie because they're exciting. They're inherently exciting because you're seeing the evidence. Well, depending on the type.
Sure.
Not in real life. I'm talking about
they're not in real life.
The
movies, they're glamorized.
In movies,
it's so much fun.
The whole John Grisham thing or whatever. I mean, this isn't as cheesy as those types of movies, but it does have that element of suspense. So if you like a good courtroom drama type movie, I would even suggest in that. You don't know anything about Thurgood Marshall, you could go in just appreciating it as that kind of movie.
So before we go on there is a spotting in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Kate Hudson, who we have not watched or reviewed any of her films in, what did we say, like 10 years?
12 years? 12 years. It has been 12 years since we have reviewed a Kate Hudson movie on the show. We just figured it out. 2005 was the last time we reviewed a movie starring her.
Skeleton Key, because after Raising Helen and Alex and Emma made their top 10 worst films of the year, we were like, we're kind of just done with her for a while.
We were done, yeah.
And she popped up in this one, and I was like, oh.
And we didn't even know she was in it.
Yeah,
I don't think
no idea.
Know.
We saw her name and went, oh.
We were almost worried, this is a bad
She'll do movies because, Matthew McConaughey isn't in this, and he's not doing romantic comedies anymore. So, and I thought she was fine in the film. It was nice to see her.
Yeah, it was a small role that I feel like a lot of, attractive women could have played in a way, but she didn't mess it up. I mean, she was fine. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, Kate Hudson, it's Penny Lane, she's back from Almost Famous. No, it wasn't like that.
No. But when I did see her name in the credits, I went, oh.
But it wasn't something we were like, oh no. Which is too bad, that's what it's come to.
Such promise.
But you make, 12 years of bad career choices. I think that, that's kind of warranted. That's a long stretch about, everyone can be forgiven, but 12 years of bad choices.
All those big budget movies that she made, she couldn't have put some money aside and made a
Gosh, and I forgot to write down the name of the actor who plays the accused, but he was also very good. And I feel bad that I didn't write his name down.
Yeah, we'll talk about him after the show. Go ahead.
Talk about him after. Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay, so we'll move on to our next movie, which is Lucky. And this is a swan song unfortunately for the late actor Harry Dean Stanton, who plays the title character of Lucky. He's an aging, kind of curmudgeonly veteran who lives in a small town in the Southwest, and after a sudden fall, begins to kind of come to grips with his mortality in his 90s. So, he's coming to grips with it a little late. And apparently, I was reading up a little bit on this movie today because I was curious about the making of it. And I was also curious about the director, John Carroll Lynch, who is not related to David Lynch, which I was shocked to find.
Really?
John Carroll Lynch is actually an actor, and when I pulled it up, I recognized him right away. He's another character actor. So no, I don't believe he is related. It didn't say anything about that online that I could find. But for those who didn't know, Harry Dean Stanton was a great character actor, played more than 200 roles over his career, most of them small. This is, according to what I could find, his first starring role since 1984's Paris, Texas, which is kind of crazy, where he's the lead. Yeah, which is kind of crazy, but he was known for being a side character actor. This movie was written, in partnership with a friend of his, and it was based on it was based on, very loosely, on his own philosophies and who he is as a person. So a lot of the kind of lines of dialogue, the character is what you might call a spiritual atheist. So he doesn't believe in God. He believes that all is going to go dark eventually, but he's spiritual in a way in that he's philosophical and kind of searching for something. And that was very much based on the conversations the writer had with Harry Dean Stanton before he passed away. Unfortunately, he passed away before this movie came out, but he left us with his final gift of this movie, which is a nice little movie. It's a nice little swan song. It isn't a 4-star classic by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a very enjoyable film. Whether you're a fan of his or not, I think if you just like nice little character studies, I think I can recommend.
He's not going to get a post-passing Oscar nomination for this one. It's
no.
It's not a big showy role.
But he's not a showy actor either.
No,
I will say that.
and I would easily recommend this film, and I would also just recommend watching just about anything that he's in. And I was thinking like Robert Duvall and these actors or Willem Dafoe, who we'll be reviewing soon, I hope. But even if they're in a bad movie, they were never bad. They always do a wonderful performance.
He's one of those too.
And he's one of those guys that comes in. He doesn't need a lot of time to establish his character, whether he's the villain or in Big Love he was the villain. He was chilling. But if he's whatever he's supposed to be, he immediately establishes that. And he's one of those people that you're just so happy to have in films because he's not a movie star, good-looking man. He doesn't look like Cary Grant. Nothing against Cary Grant, of course, but you always need to have these character actors because he just had an interesting face. Not just because he was very expressive, because he was a great actor, but you just put him on screen and you just wanted to look at the shadows that hit his face, and he just had a great look about that.
And still the case in this movie.
Yeah, you still want to have that. You want to have that in films, and that's why he's one of the great character actors. Whether it was Alien, that he was absolutely fantastic in. Paris, Texas, he was great. Big Love, he was wonderful in. He was just always one of these guys
Repo Man.
He just was always there, and it's going to be weird not having him in films because you just kind of expect him to to have a character walk into a room and there he is, like, oh, hey, Harry Dean Stanton's in this movie. Cool, great, I love it. And he's always
even if it was that 15 minutes he was in, you were going to enjoy those 15 minutes.
And he's always just had a great calming presence. He was a character that never got too excited, so to speak. He always spoke in measured words. He always was someone who felt like that was actually thinking about what he was doing, and you gotta love that. You love to have him in films. And it is a cute movie. David Lynch actually is in this film, and he's very amusing with the way he keeps talking about his lost tortoise, Mr. President Roosevelt.
President Roosevelt
is gone.
It confuses everyone at first. Yeah, like he says, President Roosevelt has disappeared. And everyone's like, yeah, he's been gone for a while.
You love the community that's around him. He kind of has his set patterns every day of going to a restaurant, and when he doesn't show up because he was hurt, people start to worry. Then they all start, people start going in and check out on him, and he's just like, go away, I'm fine. And not to give anything away, but the last shot of this film is him kind of looking up at this cactus and then looking right into the camera, smiling, turning around, and walking off into the
sunset.
Into the horizon.
Yeah, horizon.
It's beautiful. That's
you couldn't really ask for a better last film. And whether they knew that, and apparently when they shot it, he was still very healthy, so they didn't necessarily know. But he was 93 when he passed, so it's not as if that's going to be a huge surprise. It could be any day.
He hadn't aged in a while.
No, and they still show him even in this movie doing his yoga exercises. Yeah. He's doing things I can't do, and he was doing them in 93, so I was like very impressed. So and he worked with David Lynch, and I think that was they put people in the movie that he was personal friends with, which I also liked. Like David Lynch, he worked with him on 4 films, including Wild at Heart and Twin Peaks and Inland Empire. And so, you know, they had a dynamic and they had a friendship. I'm assuming Tom Skerritt, who also has a very small cameo in here. I'm not sure if they were friends, but I'm assuming because I don't know why else he was in the movie because it's sort of random when he shows up. But I liked that. It felt like a community. And, you know, like you said, he goes to the restaurant and he walks and then he goes into the little convenience store and buys his milk and talks to that woman. And there's a beautiful scene with her where she invites him to her child's fiesta and he tells her, I'm going to a fiesta, and he has a beautiful moment where he sings at the party, and I think that's one of my favorite moments of the gorgeous. Yeah, that's one of the best moments in the movie in my opinion, and it's sort of heartbreaking and melancholy and sweet all at the same time, and really great. So how many stars are you giving this one?
I go to 3 stars.
3 stars.
I did enjoy it there, but you know, I would say, oh gosh, so I would say my favorite performance of his would probably be Paris, Texas.
Yeah, it's hard to be. I mean, Paris, Texas is a classic film.
But I love Alien because he's
it's
perfect
smaller,
in it. Yeah, it's a smaller role, and he's perfect in it.
Yes.
With the Hawaiian shirts. He's the one who wore the Hawaiian shirts.
And he's the mechanic, and he's always grousing because he doesn't want to do anything unless he gets paid to do it.
He gets paid now because
he's like the
it's a
working
bigger
class
load
character.
than last time. I want to make sure that we have. He's Lynn's constantly talking about
they're
it.
like, should we let this alien on the ship or not? He's like, well, am I getting any more money? You know, like his character. You know, later on, you're kind of like, this guy was a jerk, but you know, I thought he was great.
He's gonna be missed. He really is. He was just one of the all-time greats. I would say he's right up there.
Of the character actors for sure. Yeah. No.
And one day we'll make that list because I know we've talked about.
We were talking about just recently with Brian Knoll, so maybe we will put that would be maybe an evergreen. Great character actors, the greatest of all time. That would be really hard.
It's the Walter Brennan list. For me.
But we have to have women in there too.
Oh no, but he's the top. He's well, no, Joan Cusack could be right up there in mine.
Really?
Oh yeah.
That high?
Oh yes, of course.
Wow.
I love Joan Cusack.
Yeah.
She's good.
That's true.
Why wouldn't I have a woman in that list?
I don't know. You just, I know how you are. You know, just kidding. Ooh. Well, you immediately thought Walter Brennan
when you started naming of it, I was like, and you're going to name a woman? And you were like, oh, it's hard to name a woman. I'm like, Joan Cusack, come on.
Well, I could think of a lot. I can think of a lot of women's faces, but then you think, and then I did think that's sort of unfair. I don't know their names not off of me. But when I see them in the movie, like, there's that woman who's in every movie. What's her name? We ended up looking several of them up, though. Still can't remember their names, but we'll remember it by the time that episode.
Is it sexist if we do 2 lists, the male and female list? Or
why can't we just mix
them
it
together? Oh, no.
I say just
do
mix it.
every other one, then I get in trouble if I don't have 5 in my top 10?
I don't think that's it's not. Okay, we'll move on. So our next segment, I recently had the pleasure of going to the Bend Film Festival. This was my first time to go there with my friend Chris, and she was a veteran, meaning she'd been there just once before. But we had talked about going, and Bend in the fall is not a bad excuse for a trip at all. It's gorgeous. All the leaves were turning, so let's stay inside and watch movies in the dark. Well, the weather's beautiful. What better time to do that?
That's always, I want to go to a beautiful
for 16 hours a day. Let's go
watch.
Dark
theater for 12 hours.
I know. I'm the only one who likes to vacation this way, but I like to vacation in the dark. What can I say at film festivals? But, you know, it's been going for quite a few years now. I think, I can't remember if they said it was the 14th. Oh, I should have written that down if it was the 14th year, I believe. Yes, 14th year of the festival. And I, you know, I've been to quite a few local festivals over the years, and I really enjoy it. And I did Santa Barbara, and I've gone to Portland and Vancouver, BC, Salem, when we used to have a film festival. And haven't made it down to Ashland yet, where Paul and Brad have gone, but I would like to make it down there eventually. So it's always interesting to see different film festivals and what their take is. The Bend Film Festival definitely, you know, they don't have a theme per se, but there are a lot of, because it's been a lot more outdoorsy type films.
Yay.
So those
just right up our alley.
I know. Those were not my favorites, but I will talk about some of my favorites. I saw 16 films over 3.5 days, so quite a few, and I wanted to go over some of the top 5. My number 1 film that I saw there is actually one that's going to be coming here to Salem mid-November. It's called The Square. It was the Palme d'Or winner from this year. Very controversial movie by the director Ruben Ostlund, who previously did Force Majeure. Very divisive movie, even at the film festival. It's almost 3 hours long, and it really gets people talking. And it's a film, it reminds me of Buñuel. Satires, and that it's very divisive, and it's very critical. It's comedy, it's also drama, and there was one scene in particular that made people in the audience so uncomfortable you could feel people squirming. And I love movies like that. I like movies that challenge people.
Was it physical? Something physical? Was it something Was it violent?
No, it wasn't violent.
Was it sexual?
But it was potentially violent. It didn't actually. It wasn't actually violent, but there was like the possibility of violence, but it was something unexpected that was making people very uncomfortable. And it's a group of elites trapped in a room, and something's happening to them, and they don't have control. And then he lets the scene go. And there was debate about this. Chris thought the scene went too long. I thought it went too long in the right direction, because it went so long that you were like, oh my gosh, this is going to devolve into chaos. And he's playing with that a lot in the movie. The idea of structures in society, things we've set up where we say we have control, everything's perfect, everything's normal, we can control this, and things devolving. And chaos interrupting. So very interesting movie. Like I said, very divisive, and the very long line out, because it's a 3-hour movie. In the restroom afterwards, you hear people talking about, some people going, I don't know what happened. Another person saying, I was so uncomfortable. So, but I love movies like that get you talking.
He's dropping in the bathroom. That's what Angela does.
At the line outside the door, we do. Yeah. So there you go. The next film that I loved was actually the audience favorite, and it won the Best in Show as well at the film festival, and happened to be one of my favorites too. It's called Liana, and it was actually produced by the actress Thandie Newton, which is really cool, and it has not been picked up for distribution. So if anyone is watching this show, you need to pick it up, and this movie needs to be seen. I was really disappointed that it hasn't been picked up. It's about a group of orphans in Africa that are in this kind of homestead-style orphanage, where they have a group of mothers who have basically kind of adopted these kids in a way, and they work the land, and they all take care of each other, and they have a garden, and they have chickens, and they're all self-sustaining. And a writer comes in and does a writing workshop with the kids and helps them write their own story of a hero. And then the movie turns into an animated tale that actually animates over and tells the story that the kids have written. And it's gorgeous. The animation is gorgeous. The animation is done by an African animator, and it's just, he does an amazing job of the animation. But it cuts it back and forth between the kids, like little interviews with the kids talking as they get excited, telling a story. And then Liana meets, and sometimes the story gets crazy because it's little kids and crazy things are happening. But it's also heartbreaking in parts because their real lives come into it. Like Liana's father dies of AIDS, and these kids are from Swaziland, which has the highest rate of AIDS and HIV in the world. And so their real lives are interjected in the story. But then there's ultimately hope, because they want the best for this young girl and her character. And the filmmaker was there, and they want to raise money to put together a comic book of Liana for the kids, and to distribute it worldwide. So it was by far the audience favorite. It's a beautiful film with a hopeful message, and I really hope it gets distribution. Liana, yeah, beautiful film. Another favorite, No Man's Land, which is a documentary that was actually filmed here in Oregon. And it's about the Malheur National Refuge issue, where the group of militia took over the refuge in Eastern Oregon. And it was from a documentary filmmaker who was on the ground and actually embedded at times with the actual militia. So he got a lot of behind the scenes stuff that the news crews didn't get. And it was just a fascinating movie. It was one of the best documentaries I saw at the film festival. Very balanced in its view. Shows a lot of different perspectives, including some of the anger and reasons of the militia members, as well as the community and various other groups. So I really liked that film as well. And then just very quickly, my last favorite was a comedy called Mustang Island, which is a black and white comedy set in the Mustang Island, which is a real island off of the coast of Texas. And it stars Macon Blair of Blue Ruin fame, who also directed
I'm not made for this world.
The world one. Yeah, he directed that Netflix movie. But Macon Blair is the star of this movie, and it's just a really delightful comedy. It was the best comedy I saw at the festival, so I thoroughly enjoyed it. Mustang Island.
Cool.
And I think that one, I would be surprised if it doesn't get distribution. There was a couple other really good comedies that were showing there, including one called, strangely, Mr. Roosevelt, which is actually the name of a cat in this case. So there's something about Roosevelt.
Gone.
I know, it was President Roosevelt in the other movie we saw. This one was called Mr. Roosevelt, and that one did get picked up for distribution. And that was also a very good comedy, but I liked Mustang Island just a little bit better. So.
Okay, so that we don't get mail, and I'm not being picking on you, it's Thandie Newton. Give me those TH.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
And the director also corrected me, because I raised my hand and I asked a question. I said, so how did it come about that Thandie Newton produced your film? And she was like, Thandie Newton. Yes, so sorry.
Other than from Vin Diesel.
Oh, yeah. He told you?
Yeah.
Personally?
No, it was the MTV Video Awards, and they were doing the Chronicles of Riddick, and they were up there together. See, you learned something from television.
occasionally.
What is our next segment called? Is it just a Distinguished Classic?
Oscar nominated
This is an
films, I
Oscar.
think.
Oh, that's right. So Angela and I, when you look at the Best Picture winners or all the Oscar winners, there's a few that we just had not seen. So we wanted to get around to some of these, and so this week we are reviewing Life of Emile Zola. And this tells a biopic, actually, of a famous French writer who wrote, many stories. But his most famous one, or this one we're dealing with, is about the Dreyfus affair, where a French officer was wrongly accused of leaking secrets to the Germans and was imprisoned for life. And so he. Actually, Emile Zola actually was in exile at some point in time, but kept writing and bringing attention to this, and was actually able to, prove that he was innocent. This one, Best Picture, supporting actor for the gentleman who played Dreyfus, who played Lieutenant Dreyfus, who was barely in the movie that much. It was good, but boy, he wasn't
in it very much at all.
And also won Best Screenplay. It's a good film. I did enjoy the film, but it's kind of its time. It's a little dated. I couldn't get too much into the character. I think it's because it was mainly shot like a stage play. Everything was far back. There was
Very
no
far
really
back.
Close-ups. We didn't get too many real personal moments. It was just people, going
William
through the
Dieterle
story.
directed this, and 37. It's just hard because it's such a great year for film. The Awful Truth came out this year, and it's hard. I mean, I know it's a comedy, so it's not going to beat it, but The Awful Truth is like one of the great comedies of all time, and you watch this, and you're like, that's good. Of course, a lot of people.
It's an important picture, though.
Well, and it's it's a kind of subject. It's hard to imagine them doing a movie about today, like a socialist writer who who was kind of a big thinker. He's an intellectual, and he was defending Dreyfus in part. There was an accusation of anti-Semitism, and all of that is sort of underlying this whole thing. Paul Muni, who played Dreyfus, lost the Oscar to Spencer Tracy, and we reviewed that in a previous episode. That Spencer Tracy in Captain's Courageous, which was awful. And I would say, although we haven't seen all the other nominees already, I would say that Paul Muni deserved it over Spencer Tracy because his fake French accent is better than Spencer Tracy's
Don't
fake
talk about that fake Portuguese
accent.
It sounded like Chico Marx. It was so bad.
Yeah,
so
we
bad.
want, but no, I can recommend this, especially for people that are just interested in, for us it was just like, oh, well, this one Best Picture, we've never seen it.
Yeah.
But it's not one I would say I would watch over and over
I wouldn't
again.
say they necessarily got it right that year, but that's potato. Okay, so we can certainly recommend Marshall.
Yes.
We both recommend Lucky, and again, check out Dean Stanton's line of work. Angela gave us a report from the film festival. We both can recommend. You can recommend Life of.
Yeah, I'm giving 3 stars.
Yeah, that's good. As always, you can like us on Facebook. Here we go. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Listen to us on KMUZ. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You can check out our website at realfilmsnobs.com. And you can also watch us out in Silverton, here in Salem on CCTV, as well as out in Corvallis. And check out our sponsors, our wonderful, amazing sponsors. And, of course, we always want to thank our amazing, wonderful crew. We want to thank you for watching. Have a great day and great movies.